Welcome to the T1 Determined podcast, where we bridge the conversation of type 1 diabetes and endurance. I'm Joseph Anthony Marcello, a runner, a weightlifter, a mountaineer, and athlete. As someone living with T1D, I'm on a mission to uncover and share science-backed information that drives optimal performance and longevity. And as a storyteller, I'm here to explore and share incredible feats in T1D sports physiology. Let's tackle this together. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to speak with Delaney Holtey, a student athlete on the University of Iowa women's soccer team. Delaney, a type 1 diabetic of 14 years, is deeply passionate about health and wellness. As she nears graduation and prepares for chiropractic school, her experiences highlight the power of work ethic, mindset, and leadership. Our conversation is packed with inspiration and her amazing story of overcoming obstacles, both T1D related and those inherent in highly competitive sports. I truly believe you'll find our discussion valuable. As we build this podcast from the ground up and face every slope head on, your support is crucial for our continued growth. Wherever you're listening, please share this episode and others with anyone you think might benefit. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, on Facebook at T1 Determined, and visit our website, T1Determined.net. There, you'll find all our podcast episodes, blog posts, and details about our documentary projects, including our upcoming feature film, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude. This film chronicles my journey climbing Denali, North America's tallest peak, with T1D, and our vital research into how our bodies perform under extreme exertion at altitude. Discover how you can join this expedition at T1Determined.net/LBSHA. Before we dive in, a quick but vital disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. The topics discussed and the recommendations shared by myself and our guests are personal experiences and not medical prescriptions. My aim is to foster a community where we can openly share therapy methods and management techniques that work for individuals. I believe comprehensive T1D education and well-rounded glucose management come from learning and listening to a multitude of experiences. You'll hear various approaches, but please remember that not every method or technique will work for everyone. Use this information in a way that best suits you. And always consult your healthcare team and medical professionals before making any changes to your daily routines, management, or therapies. Now, please enjoy my conversation with Delaney Holtey. Delaney, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I am very excited about our conversation. I think you have an immense amount of knowledge on how to manage type 1 diabetes and correlating that into collegiate sports like soccer. So let's begin right at the very, very beginning. If you want to tell me a little bit about how you got diagnosed with type 1 at a younger stage, and then how that kind of transitioned your understanding of type 1 when you first got diagnosed and how that progressed in the early years following your diagnosis.
Yeah, just a little bit about myself. My name's Delaney. I'm currently 21. I was diagnosed at the age of 7. I am studying at the University of Iowa, and I just finished up my soccer career as a Hawkeye as well. I'll be graduating in May and moving on to chiropractic school in July. And yeah, so my diagnosis story, I was the first person in my family to be diagnosed. No one else in my family has diabetes. So it was a new thing, to say the least. I was incredibly sick. My parents thought I had the flu. I had lost significant weight over the past 3 or 4 months, in which they didn't really notice because when you live with someone, it's harder to notice some of those changes. I presented in flu symptoms, went in one Monday morning, and yeah, the doctor was like, you need to go to the ER right now. So I was within 12 hours of going into DKA, or diabetes ketoacidosis, which is a coma and incredibly dangerous.
When you went to the doctors, did
Yeah.
you present to them? What point did they say, hey, maybe we should check her blood sugar? Did you approach them with all of the symptoms that you had and they understood those symptoms, or did you kind of ask them to check your glucose?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because we had presented them with, "Hey, this is what this kid is feeling, like, she's feeling XYZ, frequent urination, can't keep water down." Like, I couldn't even keep water down at that point, I was getting sick with the doctor in the room, and I wasn't super coherent or anything like that, and as soon as the doctor walked in the room after the nurse visited with me, he could smell it on me. He didn't even have any results back or anything because ketones can actually smell like wine a little bit, like fermented fruit, and he
Yeah.
could quite literally smell it on me. So, yeah, and a lot of what I say about the week of my diagnosis, have been told because I was not very coherent. Like, I was pretty in and out of it. My A1C was 13 something at that point, and yeah, it was pretty high. So this had accumulated over the past few months or so, as an autoimmune disorder typically does. And my blood sugars were crazy high as well. So I couldn't give you an exact number, but it was above 800. I do know that. So yeah, that's kind of my story. And I spent about a week in the hospital Monday through Friday. So I guess 5 days. And I don't know, I had support systems right away. JDRF had come, they'd visited me in the hospital, and I had family and friends coming to say hi and check in. We got in with a diabetes educator right away in the hospital to learn as you're there, because as you know, it's a lifestyle change. And with it not being in my family already, there's quite a few things to have to learn and adapt to. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown of my diagnosis a little bit. My my parents were a little nervous, but they are the people it's like, "Okay, this is what we gotta do. Let's move forward with life." And I was playing my basketball game the 2 weeks after my diagnosis. So,
Uh,
it was pretty quick turnaround, and I give them a lot of credit. You'll hear me talk about them quite frequently. I've been so blessed to have the support group that I've had.
right at the very beginning to have you're so young that you're still developing yourself. And obviously this is a wrench into not just your life, but your parents' lives. And at that point, your parents had one or two options. They could let this stop you or this let it really be an obstacle or say, hey, look, she's just beginning. She's going to be developing. And it seems like just right from the outset that they were like, we will handle this, we will figure this out. And for you growing up and developing, that seems like an amazing avenue.
Yeah, no, I still am incredibly blessed. And my parents are people where they weren't necessarily helicopter parents by any means, but if I wanted support, they would be there. And I was already a pretty independent kid. And I've said for a long time, I do feel if my diagnosis had to happen, I feel that age was such a blessing because you're at an age where you start to understand how to take care of yourself and genuinely do things on your own while still getting guidance from parents of lifestyle and habits and all of that. So it was a good transition time. And I was at an age where I could understand, yeah, this is really important. And I feel good when I do certain things and I feel bad when I do other things. So that mindset had started to develop there pretty early on, just because of the age in which I was diagnosed. I wasn't a teenager who's diagnosed that could possibly be rebelling. I wasn't 2021 when you think you got it all figured out and your life's on trajectory, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's going on? So I do feel if it hadn't happened, I was blessed in the way in which it did.
It's great. As you said, it kind of developed with you as a person. So you're able to not let diabetes control you, but let it be a piece of you as you develop so that allowed you to understand it. And progressing into sports as you're growing up at you said right away, weeks later, you were playing basketball games. How quickly did you incorporate and start to see it affect your performance? And then you were saying how you quickly learned what you did affected how you felt. So at what point did you start to correlate that while playing sports throughout middle school and into high school?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I mentioned, I played basketball, soccer, I golfed a little bit. In middle school, I got into track, really enjoyed that. So I'd done quite a few different activities. And so again, like my parents allowing me to get and jump right back into that helped me figure out, I think, quicker how important it is to take care of yourself. So I think that started to develop right away just because of the guidance I was shown. And I mean, my dad is a tough love person. So if I wasn't taking care of myself, it was, hey, so you're not doing A, B, C right now. And so this is what it's going to look like down the road. And I think my parents sometimes had different ways they wanted to go about it. But I mean, if you look at a 9, 10-year-old and say, hey, you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have, a foot when you're older. Reality snaps pretty quick. But yeah, my dad's tough love, and I attribute a lot of who I am to his mindset. But yeah, I think I really started to notice the differences in what I ate and stuff like that. I'd say within the first year or two, because when I was playing, I wanted to make sure I could fuel, but and then if I had something sugary, my blood sugars would spike. And I learned, okay, I don't play as well when my blood sugars are high. And I feel like it's pretty typical for kids when they're younger, at least it was for me, to be scared of going low because you don't want to pass out. You don't want to do some of these things that you hear your friends going through or other people in the T1D community experiencing. So I was more likely to go high than low. I really avoided going low. And so I think that also taught me how to fuel myself and pay attention to some of those things and really kind of mature in that way before other people did regarding sport. But that impacted me in school too. Like I would have to keep snacks in a closet in the teacher's classroom. So if my blood sugars went low, I could go get a snack without disrupting other people. And I was also pretty blessed too because my parents they're prepared people. They're type A people. So they always helped me a lot with packing for soccer trips and other sport related tournaments. So I really didn't take that on myself until I'd say 11, 12, 13, really. But right away, they really helped manage my packing and all of that, which I think is or was really beneficial.
Just being a kid playing a lot of sports, it's late nights a lot of the
Yeah.
time. It's a lot of traveling, being on the bus back and forth. So, how did you manage I mean, I guess it is as you grow up, you just start to develop like your sleep routine, but was it you took the day as it came, or even as a kid, did you start to develop a routine, like a practice routine? Here's what I did after school during practice. And then I knew I kind of switched the way I treated my therapy methods on game days.
Yeah. I think that I started to kind of figure that out pretty early, as I'd mentioned, but I think I would always practice in the evening. So I'd come home, eat a snack. That snack would tie me over through practice. And then I would eat dinner when I get back home from practice. So that's kind of how I handled that. But the thing about diabetes is I was not necessarily planning only for that day. As you mentioned, I was very proactive. Like I learned to be very proactive really early on. And so planning things out, knowing, hey, do I have fruit snacks available to me or what meal are we eating tomorrow? What can I eat before? And at that time, of course, I was so young, I wasn't referring to it as pregame or postgame meal per se. I mean, that maybe my dad did, but it was definitely like, oh yeah, what snack am I having? But it was definitely more thought through. And I remember vividly, I think I was 9 or 10, and I was playing in a Monster Mash tournament in October. And I remember eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich between games. And when you're younger, you play multiple games in a day. So there's a lot that goes into more fueling. Obviously, you're younger, so you can run around like that, like crazy, play, 2, 3 games in a day, if not more than that. And I just remember my stomach hurting so bad, so bad. And so that was something that I really disliked because it impacted the way I played. Like I felt like I couldn't run, couldn't do my job. So that was a really eye-opening moment to me of, okay, even if I am fueling myself, what am I fueling myself with? And how is that impacting the way, not only my blood sugars, I mean, that would spike my blood sugars in hindsight, but the way I felt when I was trying to train and perform and do all of these things.
So you get into high school, you've had it for a couple years now. So you've basically got it all underway, but as your body starts changing as you grow older and you develop, but also at the same time the sports start to become more
Yeah.
competitive. So going through high school, at what point did you realize you wanted to play in the collegiate level? And we were talking before, you were telling me that you've actually verbally committed to a school. So throughout, well, in high school and in the midst of it, so while playing high school sports, you knew that you were going to a higher level and you're preparing yourself. What did that timeline of your life look like?
Yeah, so I actually knew I wanted to play in college pretty young. I'd say, which is it's crazy looking back now, but I knew 10 years ago. I knew at 11, 12 years old that, oh, okay, like this is something I want to pursue. I'm seeing all these girls older than me. I always trained up until transitioning into high school. They made some new rules, but I always played with older girls. And so I felt like I got to see that earlier on, which I think was beneficial, but it also let me know, like, oh, I can hang with them. What are they doing? Where are they going to school? That kind of started my process. So I started going to ID camps pretty early just to get my name out there. And so as I transitioned into high school, I I knew like puberty and all the hormone changes were going to be an issue just from the community we had. So thankfully we were able to kind of be more proactive about it rather than being like, what's going on? What's going on? So we just knew to change with the routines. Like certain weeks I would need more insulin than others. I could expect spikes. That type of a thing. So you could predict kind of what's going on. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, so I met my current coach, Dave Delaney. I met him when I was 14, excuse me, turning 15. He had come to a training session and I was training with my group. And then I stayed at that practice and trained again with the older girls. I just double trained on those nights. And I remember he came over to me, introduced himself. And that was the first time I actually looked at Iowa. Both my parents went to Iowa State. So they're Cyclones. And which we're not from the same area, but it's a big in-state rivalry here. It's a big deal. So I was like, oh yeah, like Dave, the Iowa coach introduced himself. And they're like, oh, okay, okay. And I was in contact with or not in contact. I was contacting Iowa State at the time to also get recruited. So to preface this as well, until the rules have changed since then, but I could only reach out to the coaches. The coaches couldn't reach out to me. So I could send them schedules. I could call them if they weren't busy and could pick up the phone, then they could talk to me. But they couldn't call me back if they missed the call. So the recruiting process is pretty stressful already, trying to figure out where you want to be, what level you want to go to, where you can even get recruited, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you add that young aspect into it. So it's definitely kind of a stressful time, but within less than a year of meeting Dave, I met him that February and I verbally committed that fall. I had gone to an ID camp of theirs in the summer. I'd actually broken my arm playing in an Olympic development program game up in Minnesota. And so I couldn't go to the other ID camps I was planning on going to. Went to Iowa's. They're like, we really like what we see. We're going to offer you. And it's a verbal commitment. So October of my sophomore year of high school, I was 15 years old. I verbally committed as the first of my class to the University of Iowa. And yeah, looking back, it's just kind of crazy because you see how young you are. Like, still feel young. I'm 21, but at the time, you're like, oh, well, I can make these choices and do all these things. And it worked out great for me. I've had a great experience here. I've had some bad luck with injuries and such that we'll get into later. But overall, I think my experience have been incredibly blessed and I've had great people around me and great staff. And so it's worked out well. But I knew from the get-go, like, yes, this is what I want. I want a program in a Power 5 conference that's going to push me and challenge me. I want to score goals and I want to get all these stats, but I don't want to be the person that it comes easy. Like, I want it to be challenging and I want to keep growing as a person and player. And I knew I needed to be in a Power 5 conference to do that. And most likely the SEC or the Big Ten conference. I looked at Big 12 a little bit, and it's not dissing any other conference. It just ended up being that way. And we're still like just a powerhouse of a conference today, if not more than, 8 years ago or whatever it was. So that was kind of my mindset. And then it it was a little hard going through high school because my junior year, COVID happened. I lost my high school season, and then I was also transitioning to a new club. So I started playing for a club 2 hours away. I traveled 3 to 4 days a week, depending on the week, just to train. So that's 2 hours there, 2 hours home. So that's 4 hours of driving. I commuted with a girl out of Iowa City, and we went there. We knew it would best prepare us for college, and I have loved every club that I've played for. I have no bad blood with any clubs. I just knew that that transition, it was more so the girls that were also playing there. There's my club team that I graduated high school with, every single person except for one or two people were committed and going to a college. So we were already being run really as a college team. Like we had very high expectations. We were in nationally, we were traveling almost year round, really not in the spring because of high school soccer in Iowa, but every other time of the year, summer, fall, winter. So it was that club transition was really hard, especially with diabetes. That routine was difficult because of the time in the car and figuring out like the crashes and some of that. So I had a learning curve there, but I was never out of control of my diabetes per se.
For as long as that you're in that club, it was a temporary that you kind of had to adjust for that time being.
Yeah. Yep. So that was my last 2.5 years of high school for club. And then I played spring high school soccer, not my junior year because of COVID. But yeah. And COVID, I was actually supposed to graduate early. So that's a really common thing for soccer. Not, it's not uncommon. A couple girls typically do it a semester. So I was supposed to graduate from high school in December and go to Iowa in the spring, train so I'd be better prepared for fall of 2021, our main season. But because of COVID, they had switched their main season from fall to spring. So if I would have gone and played, I would have lost eligibility. So I actually just ended up staying in high school, graduating as normal, and going to college as normal. I genuinely feel it worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
think one of the great as I'm listening to this, one of the great things is it seems as though type 1 diabetes did not set you back from any of this. I can tell that you love and you crave high competition, the challenge. You even mentioned playing a step up. You're always looking for the next thing. And it seems as though you have your goal set and you have your diabetes, but mentally it does not affect you, deter you as an obstacle for your goal set. And
Yeah.
I would love to know from a mental standpoint, is it a driving factor for you? Or is it
Yes.
something that kind of has, by the time you got to this stage in your life, already settled in and it's just more so in the subconscious? Or is it something that really is like, hey, I have this. It's that little extra push. It's that little extra motivation to do a little better, play that level up.
Right after I committed, I went through a period of just absolute questioning everything. I questioned my sport. It was my highest time of anxiety in my life surrounding my sport. And it got so bad, I genuinely considered quitting. I was already committed to a Big Ten school. I had already like established that path for myself. And I got to a point where I was so anxious about the transition and what that would look like. And I'm a perfectionist, or I'm trying to work on not being a perfectionist, but I want everything to be perfect and in my control. And I had just spiraled to a point of like, I don't even know if I can do this anymore. Like, whose idea was this? Was this mine? Was this someone else's? So I went through a really low phase, and then I also had some high school soccer conflicts, like some girls on my team that I was close with freshman year were really mean to me my sophomore year, and it was this whole period of, like, finding myself from
Yeah.
15 to 16 years old, which so you go from the highest of or one of my highs of obviously being able to commit to a school, and that's when the real work begins, really, when they have all these other things that are questioning factors. And I think I've always been a very intrinsically motivated person. Like I've always motivated myself, been pretty disciplined. But that point in my life, I think tilted, and I just decided like, no, like I'm not going to feel this way anymore. Like I'm not going to allow myself to feel this way anymore. I'm going to pick myself back up. I'm going to dig myself out of this hole. I'm going to I'm really big in my faith. So this was a point where like I was questioning that as well a little bit. I'm going to rely on God and God's plan for me. And I'm going to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and doing everything in my control because at the end of the day, all I can do is control what I can. And I think that mindset is what shifted when I was 16 of, okay, like I know I can do this. I don't need to question myself anymore. You just got to control what you can. And I think that's been a huge part of my journey since that moment is I've
Yeah.
had a lot of things happen to me that are out of my control. And I think that shift, that like drive kind of shift at the age of 16 is what you're talking about, like being in the forefront of your mind. And then it turned into, okay, I don't know of anyone else doing this right now that's playing soccer. I know someone who's playing softball, but why not me? And I've kind of really latched onto that phrase in the last year or so, like, why not you? Like you're given all of these things and at the end of the day, you have you. So you gotta utilize that. Why wouldn't you give yourself the opportunity? Why would you let anxiety control your life or doubt or other people's opinions? Like why? Why not you? So I think that was kind of that shift in that moment where I really found out what it was to empower myself. And then that is kind of how that leadership really sprung about in an intentful way.
A lot of kids growing up with and without type 1 go through troubles of trying to find themselves, of trying to figure out who you are. And then you add type 1 on top of that. And we know that even fluctuating glucose, whether it's in control or out of control, if it's just out of control for a little bit, we know that affects emotions.
Hmm.
And to have such high pressure, it seems like you found a foundation within yourself that brought you further along into your career of playing soccer. So, and this is a wonderful transition of when you get into college and you mention the mental setback. Now, let's start to focus and talk about first when you started playing in college and then transition into the physical setback, because I know very early in your college career, you did have a couple physical setbacks.
Yeah. So by the time I graduated high school, I had a really great senior season and diabetes was very well controlled. I was making a transition to a new endocrinologist here in Iowa City. She's great. But through the entire time of me having such a great high school season and that transition to college, I was having so much pain in my shins. So actually, I quit track because I felt like my body just couldn't do it. And I got shin splints. And so I'd have to take rest and worry about stress fractures and all these things. I just assumed that I couldn't do those things at the same time. So I gave up track to stick with soccer. And yeah, it got so bad in the spring that I was getting dry needled multiple times a week in the spring of 2021, right before I graduated high school. And this translates into college. I was taking like 12 plus Advil a day just to get through my day. I was giving myself like ice burns on my legs from icing so much. My feet fell asleep in my cleats all the time, just genuinely thinking it was really bad. Shin splints and some calf issues. So my coach found out more about those issues and stuff. And he's like, hey, like, I think we need to kind of cut you off from playing and figure out what's going on. So I had some testing done that June heading into college and I had gotten a PRP injection to see if that would help stimulate some growth and some healing in that area. That didn't work because we didn't know the actual problem at that point. So come August, September, we're there. We're reported, we're training. I'm not playing because I'm coming back from the PRP injections and we're having back and just trying to figure out what's going on. I'm getting pain again. I'm emotional about it. Like I'm a freshman. I'm getting to watch, my 5 other freshmen teammates get to play and like earn their spot on the team and you sit on a ladder, right? So as if you're injured, you just sit here and then other people pass you.
Yeah,
So
you've waiting for this for years. I mean, you knew years before that you're going, this is kind of the anticipation moment, and now you're here. And the last thing you want to do is let, not that it's a competition among teammates, but the last thing you want to do is fall behind. You want it to prove yourself that you are the player, and you can't do that while sitting by.
yeah, so it was a super frustrating time for me and it just the communication amongst everything regarding the injury and PT, like there was a lot of issues going on with communication. Like no one really seemed to know what was going on. So that September, I had gotten tested for compartment syndrome. So I underwent this testing, and it came back as like borderline compartment syndrome. I had been resting for a couple weeks, and then it was borderline. And so really it just came down to the fact that I had compartment syndrome in my deep posterior compartment of my calf. It wasn't necessarily affecting other areas, but because it was only one region, surgery was really up to me. Compartment syndrome, the best way for me to describe it to people, honestly, if you think of a hot dog, you think of a hot dog,
Yeah.
there's like the hot dog portion and then there's a casing around it. So your
Yeah.
muscle, you can think of your muscle as the hot dog, and then your fascia surrounds muscle.
Yeah.
So basically, when you warm up a hot dog or when you warm up your muscles, they expand, and that fascia is supposed to expand with that. And mine did not expand. So that was causing a lot of pain and aggravation, and then some numbness in my feet, tingling, things that I had actually grown up with that I thought were normal. I thought everyone's feet fell asleep and their cleats
Yeah.
felt too tight when we were doing technical work when I was 8, 9
So
years old.
muscle was expanding and the fascia was staying absolutely still. So your muscles were swelling into a sock that didn't fit.
Pretty much. That's a really everything we've said is a very like simplified version of it, and mine's chronic. A lot of people can get this acutely from a traumatic injury, car accident, et cetera, et cetera. So I do want to say that it is chronic for me in that case. So really, I kind of got left with surgery's up to you. And in my opinion, it was one of those things of, okay, I'm going to do surgery and I'm going to give, my odds weren't great. I had less than a 40% chance of playing again, let alone without pain. So there's two different percentages. If you put those together, that's kind of like the gist of it. So the odds weren't super good, or I could medically retire. And I hadn't
Yeah.
even gotten my chance yet. Like at this point, I was just like, okay, I'm going to do the surgery. We're going to go forward with this. And I'm going to do everything I can to get back. And if it doesn't work, then guess what? It wasn't God's plan for me. So late October, we got surgery scheduled for late October. At that point, I really kind of was just lifting. We weren't trying to aggravate it at all. There was no point since we were doing the surgery. So yeah, that kind of summed up my freshman year. So that ended up just being like a freshman red shirt. We didn't even use a medical red shirt for that because I just never played and I was a freshman. And then I came back in that spring, and the rehab process for that is kind of wonky. It's not very linear. There's some days you're like, oh, I don't know if this worked. And then other days you feel great. And so we just took it slow. And by March, I had gotten cleared to run and I was running, and you could tell, like, I was just trying to get comfortable and get confident. Like, again, all of my other teammates have been able to get confident and comfortable.
The initial rehabilitation period, did you notice a change in your glucose management because you weren't moving as much or you're moving differently? Did you have to take more insulin, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think overall, I just adjusted to higher basal rates. And then, like any new routine, you just kind of have to figure out what that looks like. And so, based on what we were doing in rehab, like once I got into running and jumping, I could lower that back off because otherwise I'd kind of crash. And for me personally, running and playing makes my blood sugars increase, makes them go up. And then when I'm lifting, typically they would result in me crashing. And oftentimes we lift before we train if it's a lifting day. So it's just that balance, anyways. And then you add coming back from an injury into that and the inflammation of that and just getting that mind muscle connection again. Yeah, it definitely impacted all of that. Kind of relearning again a new routine, making new habits.
Getting active again, it's then readjusting to your insulin sensitivity, which is starting
Mhm.
to increase again, and just juggling what activities you're doing, especially if you say weightlifting is lowers, and then as you play, you start to rise. Well, if you're weightlifting more during rehab, you must have
Mhm.
felt that and kind of start readjusting as you started playing more and more.
Yep. Yep. And then playing in general, like it gives you adrenaline and there could be nerves, anxiety involved. So I think that's a huge driver too as to why when I would train, my blood sugars would typically increase as well. So it was managing, okay, I need to have a snack before I lift, but I can't eat too much because otherwise I'll skyrocket. But if I don't eat enough, I'm going to plummet and then I'm going to have to overeat. But going into my training session, and then I'm going to absolutely skyrocket. So it came down to this constant checking my pump. I have a T-Slim insulin pump, so it connects with Dexcom. So, which has been absolutely fantastic. I love the technology. The control IQ system has been amazing for me. But yeah, just constant checking, constant staying on top of it definitely added like a whole nother layer of anxiety being a college athlete, but nothing that I can say that in hindsight. At the time, I just did it. In
Yeah.
hindsight, I look back and I'm like, okay, wow.
It's almost as if the diabetes is not even on your mind. It's just the
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yep. And so it was just, you have to maintain life, school. And I came off of almost like a year and a half without school. Like I had my senior year, we had a really bad storm called a derecho.
Mm.
And it's basically a land hurricane and it somewhat destroyed my high school
Wow.
for my senior year. So I only went back in person for like one class the spring of me graduating. So
Yeah.
I was not studying. I had no study habits. I was also smart enough to get by without doing a whole lot in high school academically. And I graduated with almost a 4 point, it was like a 3.96 or whatever. And so I came into college and absolutely got my face, like I got smacked in the face. It was weed out classes and professors don't care as much and huge, huge classes for the weed out classes. So not only was I transitioning to, okay, this is what soccer looks like. This is the life of a D1 athlete. This is all the habits you have to do. It was also, oh, this is how I have to study, be a student. I want to be a chiropractor. I want to go to grad school. Like I have to figure out these things. And so freshman year is a huge transition period, anyways. And then you add the injury on top of that. And then you can also, I mean, diabetes on top of that as well. Thankfully, I roomed with a girl who I've actually played with since I was 12 years old, since we were 12. And so it was really great to not have to walk on eggshells around your roommate regarding your diabetes. I will say that was a huge blessing in my life because I could just come back and if something wasn't going right, she would just be really supportive, ask if she could do anything.
A lot of kids, especially going to college, are afraid of showing their diabetes in front of other people, or just having to managing it in front of other people. So being comfortable with that already, going into a new environment that's no longer home, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't touch on this much, but I grew up with the majority of my coaches being super, super supportive of me,
Yeah.
and none of them would ever question, like, my intentions. They always knew, like, I was controlling what I could. They wouldn't blame me for anything going wrong, and then during my time in high school, I did have a coach that did question what I was doing and told me I had actually just gotten my T-Slim pump, and so I was like, "Hey, like, have to make sure this full loop system works, like, I need to go test my blood sugar super quick, and then I'll be in and out, it's fine." My blood sugar was, like, 185, it was totally fine for the training we were doing.
Yeah.
It was fine, and then I was like, "Hey, like, I'm ready, we're good." And I basically got looked at and was like, "If you do that again, you're not playing." And so it turned and I just sat there, and after practice, I just remember bawling because I never had a coach do that with me before. And then it had triggered questions with my college coaches of like, "Hey, how's your diabetes going?" and everything. It just escalated into this thing that really didn't need to even exist in the first place.
Yeah.
And so being able to like moving forward from that, having a roommate, and that girl was on that team with me as well. And she saw that behavior from our coach and she was like, he has no right to like do that. And at the end of the day, whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong, like he made me a better player and he did prep me for college. And so I can't sit here and say XYZ, like, was that in hindsight a mistake, like on his end? Like, should that happen to anyone? Probably not. But it was a huge learning moment for me.
Whether people have good or bad intentions, that kind of stuff does happen. You can't shy away from the fact that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
And I
that,
just think yeah. And I think I'd been lucky to not have to experience that yet per se.
yeah.
And he was a hard coach. Like he prepped you for college. And so I have a ton of respect for him. I think outside of that one or two moments there regarding my diabetes and like, hey, like I can't necessarily control what's going on here and all of that. But in hindsight, like, I don't think I would change anything. But again, moving forward, having my freshman year roommate, her name's Kenzie, like having her experience that with me and us kind of growing up together, like that just made, I think, my college experience and that transition a little easier because I always knew someone understood it and she didn't like try to overstep and be like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Like she was just there to support me. and so were her parents. And so I was always super grateful for that. And the team has always been so embracing of me and like, hey, like, I don't know. I've only ever sat out of, and I've never even sat out more than 15 minutes. I've only ever had to come out of training, I think 3 or 4 times in my entire college career, which is 4 years. The reality of that happening isn't like was not often for me, but just having that support. And then like no matter what the coaches thought, whether it's diabetes, training, etc., that didn't matter because my teammates had me, they understood me, and that was what was most important to me at the end of the day. But yeah, it was definitely a big transition in that sense too, from you don't have your parents anymore, like to console you if someone says something. And yeah, I don't know. Definitely a transition.
Really great thinking in a team mindset, especially soccer is such a team sport. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
no one person that can win a game. It's really up to the entire team from the beginning to end.
Hmm.
So after rehab, after getting back active, finally, at what point was it sophomore year that you were able to play in your first collegiate game?
Yeah. So I played in my first collegiate game my sophomore year. I'd gotten off playing in a semi pro program that summer. That really helped me feel more like myself. I came in fit. I looked pretty good. I felt better. I felt more confident. And then 4 games in, we had traveled out to California to play UCLA and Cal Poly. And in the Cal Poly game, I'd gotten hit and sandwiched between two girls. And immediately I had pain in my lower right leg area, just under my knee, but on the outside. And I was like, huh, weird. But that game was just kind of a mess. Like our goalie had a really terrible, awful injury. We were just really focused on getting home at that point. We won that game and we just needed to get home. School started the next day. So I was just limping around. I didn't really say anything. A lot of college athletes, like, it's just like, okay, we'll figure it out later. Let's move on. So you can keep playing, etc. So I ended up through training and everything, I had ended up breaking my leg in that game, and I just never knew it because of the location. So I broke my fibula, which only bears about 10 to 15% of your weight and only will cause extreme pain and discomfort when you twist. So I wasn't consistently having pain, but there were times where like my leg would give out because the pain was so bad. So it took about 2.5, 3 weeks to actually figure out what was going on with that and getting x-rays
Were
and
you playing during that time period?
yeah, yep. So I played up until that point, and then the time that really took me out was I was warming up for a game against a Pacific team, like a Florida team, and we were doing like crisscross leg into sprints. And as I crisscrossed and came out of it and went to sprint, I was like, oh, and I was just limping from there on out. We went into the training room again, 20 minutes until this game starts, trying to cup, scrape, roll it out, do all the things. Obviously, it's a broken bone. We don't know it at this point. None of this is helping. If anything, it's probably making it worse.
Anything you're doing is definitely not helping a broken bone.
Yeah. So at that point, we were just kind of desperate to figure out, okay, what's going on. I got an appointment the next day. The doc, he's like, "You want to see it?" And I was like, "Sure." What is it? And I was like, "Oh, it's not broken." He's like, "Look closer." And I was like, "Oh, it is broken." And I just laughed. At that point, I vividly remember seeing it and just you're like kind of like, "Oh, you're joking," in that
Yeah.
moment. Like, I had just lost my entire freshman year, I'd gotten back, was feeling better, all these things, and there goes my sophomore year. So it was kind of a moment of like, "Holy cow, I can't believe this is real for me." But yeah, I kinda go through the same thing again. I could still lift, and I believe I took about a couple weeks off, and then I could start biking again, so the diabetes transition wasn't as big with that one, but I really had to take myself out of, "Okay, what's my identity?" Because I just got lost my identity twice, a little bit.
Back to back. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
too there it was very close in timing.
Yeah. So, I think it was just it was frustrating to me, but I also had known, "Okay, maybe my role is not what I wanted it to be," because I think everyone obviously, when you commit and you wanna go play at a Big 10 school, like, you want the stats, you want the media, you want all these things, and at the end of the day, not many people get that. Even people who play 90-minute games, some of them aren't getting any media attention. or any, big recognition on anything. So what's it about? And I had kind of started learning this my freshman year. Like, how am I going to continue to contribute to a team when I'm not on the field or I'm not training with them? So I just really focused on being there for other people and being a good teammate and being a good friend and guiding others that had gotten injured. And I just really took on that mentorship role and tried to just kind of keep the attitude and the mindset of nose to the grindstone. No matter what happens, you're going to give all your effort. If you only have 80% that day, you're going to give 100% of that 80%. And no, like, because at the end of the day, not to sound harsh, but at the end of the day, no one cares how you're feeling.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is up to you to keep going and pushing through it. So why wouldn't you do that and give yourself the best opportunity? So I rehabbed back. It was a straightforward rehab, but I had some rockiness toward the end of my rehab just because it's an area that has a lot of nerves. So I was dealing with some like drop foot issues, but I came back that spring, had a really great spring, scored 3 goals in our spring games. We had 4 or 5 spring games
Yeah.
and just was starting to feel confident again.
That's very important to build the confidence again,
Yeah.
I especially since it seems like you're switching into the mentorship mentality, but that also doesn't mean that you have to stop your playing mentality.
Yeah.
Playing again in the spring, even if it was only a couple games, that can show you that you're still here and you still got something left.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like no matter what you're going through, how are you treating people around you? Like, are you letting everything that's happening to you in your life dictate how kind you are to other people, how much you're supporting others? Because I could have easily sat there. And it's not like I didn't wrestle with it at times. I think everyone deals with jealousy and everyone deals with, dang, like that should be me or I wish that was me. Everyone deals with those thoughts and feelings, but how are you redirecting your behavior to be positive? Just sit there and support people and understand like my time will come, and if it doesn't, then this is my role and I need to embrace it and I need to quit fighting it.
The ultimate goal is no matter what, you were brought onto this to help the team. So
Yeah.
even if you're injured and you can't play, you were brought to this school nonetheless to still help the team win. So
Yeah.
you look, how best can you manage that? How best? And it seems like correlating that to sports and off sports is a lot of these obstacles happen to you and you have the mindset of control what you can't control. So just being nice, understanding other people and and it's a wonderful mindset to have. I need personally more of it when I'm walking down the street and go to a cashier. I need to smile more to to that
Yeah.
cashier. But it's kind of just being like what you put into it is what you get out.
Yeah. No, I absolutely believe that. And I don't know. My dad has told me this since a very young age. Like, life is unfair. Life is unfair. Like, you're either going to accept that or you're going to get left behind. And so I think that hit me at a very young age, just with the diabetes diagnosis and having to navigate that and everything. It made some of this injury adversity, as hard as that was, it made it a little bit easier because I was like, "Oh, I've seen some of this before, just in a different font or, like,
Yeah.
in a different way." So, yeah, but I was able to get back and really build my confidence. Sophomore year, I stayed and trained that summer, and, I was nervous about getting hurt again, and I was like, "Okay, at what point do you medically retire? Because this is a big commitment to be sitting here and getting, like, hurt time and time and time again." And after breaking my leg, I was like, "Man, like, I don't know, like, I love the game so much, but I don't wanna feel, like, isolated or anything like that." But our new strength and conditioning coach had come in that fall, and he is amazing. Andre McIntyre is his name, Coach Mac, and he's with us to this day. He's just fantastic, and he really switched my mindset to, like, being able to reinvent yourself every single time something happens to you, and and just being a good teammate and trusting in God's plan for you and all of these things. And so I attribute a lot of my mindset and stuff, especially in my 3rd and 4th year at Iowa, to him. I think he's just really knowledgeable and he's a great mentor and leader, and he doesn't want you to feel behind. So all the communication with rehab and all of that was a lot better. I felt really cared for. So yeah, that allowed for more confidence. And then I stayed in the summer to train with him and a big group of girls. There's 14 or 15 of us that stayed almost all summer to train with him to prepare for 2023 season. And we made history a lot. in 2023. So we made the Big Ten tournament and we were the 8th seed. And then we ended up winning the Big Ten tournament. You turn around and you have a really successful preseason and you're doing all these really great things. You go in the tournament. Big Ten is like a really deep conference. All teams are good. And so you're just taking game by game, day by day. We always talk about attention to detail and all those things. And ultimately, all of those things lined up and allowed us to win and be Big Ten champs. So that was really cool because I had visualized that moment since I committed here. Like I visualized raising that trophy.
Actively playing on the field again.
Yes, I got time in almost every game of that
Yeah.
fall. Was it the time I wanted? Not necessarily, but I'd also been out for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was just taking what I could get and learning from it and moving on and just, again, trying to really keep my mindset right and nose on the grindstone. And I can't control the coach's decisions on playing time or anything like that.
Yeah. Your team won. Again, it goes back to how can you best benefit the team to be in a winning situation.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone has a role. And if everyone's fighting against that role, then you really don't have contribution. You don't have good team culture. And we preach team culture all the time. Like I'm a part of our leadership culture group and it's very important. And you have to get we have a pretty large roster. You have to get 30 something girls and coaches and everything on the same page to want the same thing and go about it in similar ways. And you're only seeing those people 3-4 hours a day. And there's certain months in the year you don't see them at all, like summer, etc. So how are we building a team culture that's for the team? So yeah, I think all of those things fell in the line to really help contribute our success. And then we were able to host our first ever NCAA game that season in 2023 because we won. So we got an automatic bid for that. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. And
Well, congratulations. It is
yeah, thank you.
an incredible achievement and accomplishment. You'll be years from now looking back at this as probably one of the biggest highlights that you've gone through.
Yeah, and it's funny too because college athletics is very go, go, go. Like even if you do something well, you don't really highlight that or dwell on it. Like you're on to the next thing. So within 48 hours of us winning Big Tens, they looked at us, our staff, and was like, "Hey, this doesn't matter anymore." Newsflash, this gets you nowhere. This trophy, in fact, should be more motivation for you to go prove people wrong. Like, let's go make history.
Yeah.
So they had made in 2021, they had also won the Big Ten tournament, but it was a different style because of the way COVID had worked.
Yeah.
So we genuinely made history in this tournament regarding that. And then we'd host the NCAA game and they had made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament, to the round of 22. So in 2023, we made it to the round of 32 and we lost. So we weren't able to make history there, but it was such a ride. It's not even about that. And it's not even necessarily about winning a Big Ten tournament. That obviously that's the end, one of the end goals. And it's amazing to have that experience and you get a ring and you get a small trophy and all these things. But at the end of the day, it's so much about the journey and what led into that and what you put in every day than it is about the final outcome. Because if you only focus on the final outcome, it goes by like that.
I can't hide the fact that I'm a Boston boy. I'm a New England kid, born
Yeah.
and raised in the city of champions. So a lot of people might hate me for that comment. I just might not like Boston for the amount of sports that we have won in the history. But I think instantly to somebody, and I must mention him, like Tom Brady, who
Yeah.
wins a Super Bowl, and then the next year he says it doesn't matter, I'm on to the next. And the reason why I say this and I relate this is it is in a way kind of like managing type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
You have a really good day and your blood glucose is in range however you want it. And that's wonderful. You've won that day. You've got that accomplishment. You wake up the next day, yesterday doesn't matter. You still
Yeah.
gotta manage it today. It doesn't matter if you manage, if you had one really good day, you kind of have to go again and again and again, something that's going to carry with you. And just having that sport mindset of being like, yes, this is awesome. This is a great achievement. I can be proud of myself. I can hold in that confidence, but that cannot define me. That's it. Tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow, this is not going to mean anything. That must mean that I have to be a go-getter. I can't stop thinking like I have been before. And you use that previous day, you use that previous championship as motivation and also a piece of yourself going forward to continue to do better, to continue to build that I'm very competitive with myself. I say
Yeah.
competitive, but it's not in a way, not in a negative way, but you continue to use that competitiveness to in a way help manage your blood glucose, but just keep that mindset throughout your life of just being like, today's a new day. I got to get at it. I can't let yesterday define me. I can let it be a piece of me, but it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And like hitting off that too is we have burnout as well. Like whether it's, I mean, you can tie this back into sport too. Like at some point, you're going to feel burnout in your sport, whether it's late in the season, your body's hurting and you can't get out of bed without aches and cracks and all these things, or, your blood sugar's been high all day and it just doesn't seem to work out and you just can't seem to figure out why it's off this week or these past few days. Like you don't get I guess you can make a choice to take time off of a sport, but for diabetes, you don't get to take a break. You experience burnout all the time, all the time. There are days that I want to chuck my pump out the window. Like it buzzes at me and I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to hear you again. Like be quiet. I don't want to deal with it. But it is one of those things where I think sport and diabetes have like really played off one another in my life of like, yeah, if yesterday was good, it doesn't matter because tomorrow's coming. And if yesterday was bad, guess what? It's a new day.
The opposite way as well, the reverse is that if you had a bad day, if you lose a game, that's still the motivation. If you had a bad day managing to do good the next day, it's not to say, hey, let's do bad and bad and bad and bad, because then you'll end up like the current 4-13 Patriots team. You get what I'm saying? Is like,
Yeah.
it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay. The burnout is really real because this is something that's not going away and it's
Mhm.
day after day after day. And sometimes I don't even realize that I'm burned out until I step away. I didn't realize that I was so stressed and managed by my diabetes when I'm training until after my what I consider my big game is a big climb or something. Do you
Mhm.
feel the same way out like the day after a big game? Do you realize how focused you were on your diabetes or on the game itself? Because all that pressure kind of builds onto each other.
Yeah. I'd say times here and there. So, like, our days when we had fitness tests, I was always adamant about having my blood sugars in place, but, like, you don't wanna fail fitness tests. So, I was just, like, every hour, like, "What's my blood sugar? What's it at? What's it at?" Like, you almost don't sleep well because you're so anxious about, like, "I need my stuff to be in line. I can't have a site fail. I can't have some of these things happen. I can't go low in the middle of the night," which that did happen to me once. Like, before a fitness test and, like, again, out of your control, but you're trying to control every aspect you can, which takes a lot of energy. And so I guess the main times I would see that is around fitness tests, but now that I'm out of it, so for those that don't know, we're a fall sport, so, like, football, soccer, if you're not moving on and playing pro or et cetera, like, you're done. So I'm currently just rehabbing an injury from this past season that I had sustained, and then, like, I'm done. So I graduate and I move on to grad school. So I'm not currently training. So I've had some time to sit here and really reflect and be like, "Oh, wow. You did put a lot of energy in every single day for how many years straight to make sure you were good to go. And you didn't do that for anyone but yourself." And I think that's the part where I sit there and it's hard for me to sit there and be proud of myself. I don't give myself a ton of credit, but in hindsight, I've really sat here and been like, "Wow." Like, you could have just said, "Screw it." Like, Delaney as a freshman could have sat there and been like, Nothing's going right. I don't wanna take care of myself anymore. I'm done. Why do I have to do this? I don't wanna do it." Like, no, I did it for me. And I think that's so important is, like, you have to have, like, that me versus me mentality a little bit that we were hitting on earlier, but, I mean, you have to have a balance of grace for yourself and understanding you can't control everything, but you also have to sit there in hindsight after being done with something big and be like, "Wow, you know what? Maybe there is something to be proud of there that I wasn't even aware of because while I was in it, I just did it." And I think that's the stage where I'm at right now. Like, I've been out of soccer here 3, 4 months since our season ended, and it was my last game as a senior, and I hung up the cleats.
What's next for you
Yeah,
um, in the realm of athleticism, but also in chiropractic? If you want to touch on that, and I know you have a passion for chiropractic that is related to kind of just sports physiology and type
yeah.
1 diabetes management. So I'd love to hit on those topics.
Yeah, so I like I mentioned, I decided to hang up the cleats. I had a medical red shirt and I could have had a freshman red shirt if I wanted. I decided to forego my eligibility just because I genuinely did feel like I had done my time, if that makes sense. And
What is a red shirt exactly? What is
yeah, so when you get injured, so like a freshman year redshirt, basically I'd get another year of eligibility. So I have in paper, I could have taken a fifth year per se, which is very common right now because anyone who was here during COVID, so not my class, but the class above me had a fifth year and a lot of girls took that. But yeah, so for me, like I've been very called to go into chiropractic since I was 17 or 18 years old. I was just always fascinated with the idea of having a holistic outlook because I feel I bring a unique perspective of I understand what's important regarding lifestyle. So it's exercise, diet, how you eat, your habits, what you believe, everything you're consuming, media, food, habits, all those things compile into one thing. And that is the best thing you can have is good habits, consistency, discipline, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. And that's just preventative medicine right there. And then you add chiropractic on top of that, which allows for just overall alignment in the body so you can perform your daily activities and your life and all those hobbies and habits to the best of your ability. But I also have the unique perspective of being on medication the rest of my life as a diabetic. And then I've also experienced injuries and some surgeries and stuff like that. So I feel like I bring this unique perspective of understanding like, hey, this is might be a situation where we need to operate. But here's another situation where if you just make a lifestyle change, maybe you'd be better off. So I'm looking to take that further with chiropractic. And I just think I'm like really ready to move on to that. I just feel a really big calling in that regard. And I think it was hard for me to sit there and say, like, I'm ready to leave my sport and what my identity has been for 18, 19 years of my life. I started playing when I was 2 or 3 years old. So it's really been a foundation in my entire life. So I'm currently figuring that out. And I'm in the fall, we had another really successful season, my senior year. And we made it to the Sweet 16. So we did make history for NCAAs. So that was really, really cool experience. And I just kind of knew I was like, like I really have checked off all the things on my list and I'm ready to move forward.
Yeah.
College athletics is changing quite a bit. But yeah, I had decided in September, October, like, hey, I think it's time for me to move on. My calling's elsewhere. I've given everything I have to this program, and I do feel I've left it in a better place than when I got here, and that's all you can ask for. So yeah, I will graduate here in May, and I am majoring in health studies with a minor in human physiology. So it's all in the Department of Health and Human Physiology. And then I'll go to Palmer College of Chiropractic in July. So it's a quick turnaround. And I'll be there for almost 4 years. And yeah, I'm really excited for the next chapter. And I'm gonna have to learn new ways to help lead other people, but I'm excited nonetheless.
And you'll probably, I think, you'll take everything that you've learned thus far up until this point as your identity. It's not like your identity changes. It just kind of
Yeah.
transitions into that next, and you're gonna take a huge. Again, this is what I've been alluding to from before. Is it is a foundation. You're building a foundation, and I personally believe that you build that foundation all the way through life, no matter how old you get. You're
Mhm.
constantly. I think as a type 1 diabetic, one of the best things we can do to combat complications of this disease is or condition is to learn constantly. I mean, learning stimulates the brain, so it
Yeah.
just helps. Even if your blood sugar is low or high throughout your whole life, you could be 80 years old. There's still neuroplasticity, is still learning, and
Mhm.
everything to that point helps build your foundation. So
Yeah.
I think from probably growing up active, you're probably going to remain active. You're probably going to stay active, even if your diabetes management, your insulin sensitivity, your basal rate kind of shifts throughout as well.
Yeah. And that's what I'm finding too. Like I'm in that process right now of relearning and I got an injection done on my knee. So I
Yeah.
got that done in January. So it's like been another kind of rehab process of, okay, I didn't do a whole lot for 3 or 4 weeks and now I'm adding more. Now I'm adding more. And here in a couple of weeks, I'll get to start running again and see how that goes. So it's constant adjustment, which I don't think a ton of people understand unless they have it. It is constant adjustment. I mean, you can do the same thing for 3 days straight and your blood sugars are going to look different.
Yeah.
So there's an immense amount of factors that are outside of your control. Routines change. I'm trying to figure out in which way I want to start working out again when I'm fully cleared. Is that running or is that biking? Is it low impact, high impact? And what I want to do. So I'm in that transition phase right now. And it's going to change again for the month and a half that I'm graduated and kind of in between of graduation and going to school. And then I'm going to go to grad school and it's going to be a whole different ballgame.
What was your daily routine of like pre-game prep,
Yeah.
during game management, and then post-game management? Let's focus on college because I can imagine your high school was very different than college. And then
Yeah.
now, no matter what you do during working out, it's going to be different than it was during college.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think transitioning to college, it's gonna be a huge time commitment and everything matters, but you don't really realize it till you're in it. That your sleep matters, what you're putting into your body matters, hydration, your recovery, everything. And so for me, I found and I'll kind of go off what I did in this past year because I think it's been the best for me. I've learned a lot in my 4 years here. And it's funny because it's almost taken me, 2.5, 3 years to really figure out what works, but I made it work the whole time. It's just
Yeah.
like figuring out what's most ideal. But by the time you figure that out, you're kind of like, oh, well, I'm almost done. Just to preface that, like, you never get to be perfect by any means. But ideally, like on a game day, I'd wake up, we'd have like a pregame meal around or a walkthrough around 9:30 in the morning. Say this is a Thursday night game. Say the game's at 7 p.m. We'd have a walkthrough at 9:30, and before then, I'd get up at 7:38, and I like on game days having high protein breakfast. So I'd make myself like a small steak fillet and then eggs, and then a side of avocado and some fruit if I wanted carbs.
Mm.
That would keep my blood sugars very consistent for me. Yeah, and so that really worked for me, and obviously that's a very low carb breakfast, but I was able to set my blood sugars up very steady from the get-go, so when I got to pregame meal around 2:30, 3:30, I could add more carbs in, and that would be my fuel, and then the night before game 2, I'd make sure to get good carbs so I could fill my glycogen stores up because, again, carbs make your blood sugars fluctuate a ton, so I do think that's something that athletes will have a battle with no matter what, and I would try to, like, get some carbs before the game and, like, fruit or potatoes, something that's not gonna necessarily spike me, but it won't make me feel super full either, so because I like to play when I'm not full, like, I'd rather be
So
playing.
something that is carbs so it can give your body energy, but it's also light so it doesn't weigh you down.
Yep, yep, so that's kinda how that looks for me, and then if I needed to correct or anything while we were getting ready for the game, getting uniforms on, etcetera, warming up, I do fruit snacks, Gatorade, there's always Gatorade available, and that's a little more unpredictable because you don't necessarily know how many carbs you're drinking because you don't know how diluted it is versus what they say on the package, so I wouldn't do too much of that unless I, like, really needed it, but yeah, applesauce, like, Go-Go squeezes are super easy, fruit snacks, all that, and then I'd make sure I'd have decent electrolytes as well because we're more prone to being dehydrated in some of those things too, so that's kinda how my, like, game days went. And then as far as training, we train in the mornings, which I loved. Personally, I can't speak for other people, but personally as a diabetic, I feel training in the morning is the best thing I could possibly do for myself and keep it routine because you don't have multiple meals in your stomach yet impacting your blood sugars. You're coming off of a fasted sleep. So I personally find it's way easier to maintain like steady blood sugars when working out in the morning. So our training time worked wonderful for me. Where I struggled for a while is I didn't ever like to eat before I trained, but at this level, you need to. Like, you will not I would walk out of practice actually starving, stomach pains and all, and then you'd feel fatigued. You'd fatigue quicker. So I just had to figure out what wouldn't and would spike my blood sugars. So I tried oatmeal for a while. That always spiked me, stayed away from that. Certain fruits will spike me more than others. So I actually settled on yogurt and I would try to get something that had really low sugar, but decently high protein and like a low to medium amount of carbs. And that filled me up enough and made me feel fueled without overdoing it per se. And then not making me feel heavy when I'm trying to work out. And then again, if I needed to correct, fruit snacks is a go to and applesauce is like the easiest thing because it's an out, you go.
When you're playing a soccer game, if you can remind me, how long is each game, and then for how long are you on the field? So what are your sets of like spurts?
Yeah, soccer's hard because it's a mix of everything. Like, you have to have speed, strength, endurance, agility. So there's like multiple components in that regard. And for me, I would train with my pump unless we were scrimmaging, but I wouldn't play in games with my pump. So I just make sure I would go in as steady as possible. And games are 90 minutes. And so, like, depending on the player, some people can play a full 90 or some people do. And then some people get subbed in. So, like, I was coming off the bench. So I would go in 10, 15, 25 minutes, like whatever that allotted time was. I'd take my pump off. I'd know what my blood sugar is going into it.
Yeah.
And I could tell, like, obviously, you're going to get adrenaline. Like, you can figure out and manage ways to play when your blood sugars are spiking as long as they're not consistently high. Like, you're not gonna feel as good, but it's not like you have to sit out because you're low. But, yeah, I would in college, I'd say I'd like to go into games and training around 145, 150. If I could try to get it to stay and not spike above 200 after I came back out, that'd be, like, really good for me. But sometimes adrenaline just absolutely takes over and then you'll spike a little bit more than that. So I'd take my pump off, go play. I would get to halftime, get subbed, whatever it was, and I'd come back out, put my pump on, and immediately make any corrections. Sometimes I spiked, other times I didn't. Again, there's so many factors. That's the other thing too. Like, if I spiked, I knew I'd probably crash just because adrenaline, and then I still had insulin on board and I'd give more. So it just became this whole game again. Like, you have to be proactive. And once you learn your patterns, and you have to pay attention to them. But once you start to figure those out, it makes it a little bit easier to
Yeah.
predict what's going on. I mean, there are still days where I was like, I have no idea why this is happening. Why is my blood sugar 55 and I need to be ready to go into this game right now? Like that. And I thankfully I hadn't been going in at that point in time, but there was a game where I was panicking. I was like chugging Gatorade. There's no sugarcoating it. Like, it's hard. It's a lot of management.
Comes back to your statement of control what you can't control, but at the same time, understand that there are factors out of your control, but don't let that stop you. Let that kind of just like, it's all right if these happen in the background, as long as you're in control enough to keep yourself within a relatively safe margin.
Yeah. And I think the best way to look at that, honestly, is an A1C. Like, I just had a endo appointment last week and my A1C ended up coming back at 6.4, which is actually my lowest ever. I'd gotten down to 6.5 and I've been below 7 here for a few years now, but I've been trying to like figure out a way to keep it coming down. But yeah, I think that's a really good indicator too of like, okay, how much are these spikes affecting me and how quickly can I recover from them? Because they're bound to happen, whether it's technology error or you miscalculated carbs or someone misprinted a label. Like, it's going to happen. It's just how quickly can you correct. Same with the lows.
And as you've experienced, it's tying this all back together into a
Mhm.
full circle moment. It's how you handle those obstacles, and each previous obstacle prepares you for the next.
I just say, like, overall, I think mindset plays such a key role in life. And that's regarding diabetes, but that's also regarding everything else you're going to encounter. Talking back to what I said earlier, like, life is unfair. Either you're going to accept it or get left behind. And so, again, it sounds harsh and whatnot, but it is genuinely true. You see it with people all the time. So it's just like, how do you get to know yourself and have really good self-awareness to know like, "Oh, hey, this isn't going the way I wanted it to, so how can I redirect this? Or how can I pick myself back up?" Because things are going to happen to you that you're not gonna like or you don't deserve or XYZ, and it's just, how do I keep going? And then with that, I feel like, especially through athletics, I found like it's not the destination, it's your entire journey. And I'm really big on, yes, negative things can happen, but that doesn't have to be negative.
Mhm.
Hardships genuinely build you as a person, they build perseverance and they build your character and they give you hope. So, like, the next time you go through something, you can pick yourself back up easier than the time before. I genuinely feel it ties all together. And then makes you have better relationships with the people around you. Hopefully, you choose better people to have in your life. And it's just this snowball effect on every other area of your life, just based around your mindset and really figuring out what your values are.
Wonderfully said. And you stated this throughout our conversation, but I'd like to quickly double click on this. You heavily rely on your faith. And again, listeners, I'm not advocating for one religion based versus another religion, but I would like to focus on the idea of having a belief system within faith, with also within your teammates, within your family, having and friends to support, having that belief system. How important is that to you?
I think it's incredibly important. You aren't put on this earth here to do it alone. And like something I know when I'm struggling because I want to self isolate. Like I want to figure it out, go into my hole, figure it out, and come back out. And what I've had to really reflect and work on within myself is bringing other people into it, people that are good people that can help you or just be there for you. But you can't do it alone. And I just feel like whether that's you leaning on your faith that you have, again, like I'm a Christian, it can vary depending on who you are. Everyone here has a belief system, so lean on that. And then I think like your friends, your relationship, your significant other, your parents, they all have your coaches. They all have an influence on your life. And so I'm really hoping that those people bring positive influence. Like parents just being there for their kid and not letting it become, oh, it's their problem. Like, yes, it's an overwhelming thing as a parent and it does suck for them too. Like it's expensive, it's all these things and all of that. And it's also exhausting for a parent. The parents worry. Like my parents still worry about me. And I'm 21 years old. So I just really encourage parents to be encouraging and try to understand how to be helpful to their kiddo. And, like we don't get to take a break. So if we get a little sassy, just take it with a grain of salt. Like I always end up apologizing to my parents, but it's taken time for me to sit there and be like, oh, that's why I acted that way.
It comes. It's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think to like teammates, just being a good teammate, being a good person, just offering to help and just being there for them. Don't tell them to do something because it is isolating when people tell you what to do because it just proves to you that they don't know what's going on. So I think just really being like a shoulder to lean on, I suppose. And then I guess in regard to coaches, understand that there's so much outside of your players' diabetes that they have no control over. The majority of coaches I do feel have a good grasp on this, but there are some out there that just sit there and it's like, oh, well, this is your fault. And I promise you, if they're a good kid and they have good intentions, they're doing everything in their power to be competing for you, whether it's on the track, court, field, et cetera, et cetera. So you guilting them and ruining their confidence in that way
Mhm.
just is the worst thing you can do for your athlete. So,
And if you don't understand what that kid is going through, and that relates to anything beyond type 1
oh,
diabetes.
yeah. Yep. Confidence is key. So, and if you have questions, talk to the kid about it. I think
Yep.
everyone assumes that because you're young, you don't know what's going on, but maybe the kid's going through a divorce or their family's going through a divorce or a death in the family or they just got diagnosed with diabetes. Like that communication can really fix everything, but you have to be willing to communicate. And so I just really emphasize not hanging things over people's heads because you don't know what they're going through. And if you don't care to figure it out, then it's more on you than it is on the other person. Regarding diabetics, as I've already hit, road's hard. There's no way to sugarcoat it. But again, all of these things that are ups and downs just make you a stronger person. And you have to try to be proactive and surround yourself with good people that genuinely want to see you do well and will support you when things aren't going well. So control what you can, but give yourself some grace, which is hard to do. It's hard to balance that. I struggle with that still every day.
As somebody who I take pride in really attempting to be close to my family, I have a big
Mhm.
Italian family. As someone who's also, I hold a very strong sense in my religious faith. And again, I don't put any sort of religion on anybody, but I have a strong belief system within that. And as somebody who is a huge sports enthusiast, I have genuinely enjoyed talking to you. I really want to commend you for the mindset, the T1 determined mission. You're somebody who completely embodies that. What I'm trying, the message I am personally trying to put out. So I cannot thank you enough for everything that you have to say. I mean, you clearly are a go getter. You clearly love the competition and trying to play up and get to that next step, but you enjoy the process. It's about the journey and the adventure throughout. And you know that, and you think of what you can do to best benefit the situation, to best benefit the team, to be a mentor, and to just continue to better yourself throughout your life into your next chapter beyond soccer into chiropractic. So I would just like to extend a huge thank you for being so open, being so vulnerable, and just telling us about your experience and your story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
A lot of people who are going through troubles, or a lot of people who just want to have some sort of advice, is there a way, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, other ways of social media contact, how can people get in touch with you in case they'd love to talk to with you further about this?
Yeah, all of my socials are at Delaney Holtey, so DelaneyHoltey. All my socials are there, so you can direct message me. I might not see it for a couple weeks, but eventually I will. And if people want to know a little bit more about me or they want to read more, I did produce some articles with Girls Soccer Network. It's a series of 3 articles that just talk about kind of my journey, what the impact of diabetes has on athletes, and then kind of some advice to parents, teammates, coaches, other diabetics, kind of similar to what we just hit on a little bit. But yeah, those are some ways to learn a bit more about me or get connected with me.
Wonderful. And we'll provide links to those. So thank you very much, Delaney. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to my conversation with Delaney Holtey. It's truly a testament to the power of perseverance and smart management when navigating type 1 diabetes, especially in a sport like soccer. Delaney, thank you for sharing your experiences and for inspiring us T1D athletes. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. Every share helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories and understand the science behind T1D and peak performance. For all our content, including details on our upcoming documentary, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude, please visit t1determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance and Facebook at T1 Determined. We will have announcements soon on our expansion to more social platforms. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.